All right, so okie dokie. So hello, and we've got a very exciting talk today on developing a climate action plan from Jules and the iFarm project, and I'm sure he's going to tell you much more. He wears many hats, so over to Jules. Take it away.
Hi everyone. Yeah, so I'm Jules, and I'm the managing director of a community benefit society called iFarm. The long form of it is Ikigai Farm Limited. And Ikigai is a Japanese concept and a lovely Venn diagram, which is that which you're good at, that which you can be paid for, which is really important, that which you love, and most importantly, that which the world needs. And so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the formation of our community benefit society and some of the steps we're taking in East Anglia, Norfolk and Suffolk in particular, to community climate action. So I'm hopefully, Phoenix, you might need to just let me share my screen, make me co-host or something. And I'll show you a few slides. Now, I've recently presented at West Suffolk College Sustainability Department with some really nice outcomes. So the first bit of the presentation you'll see, forgive me, because I'm definitely preaching to the converted, but I thought I'd leave it in there just to set the scene a little bit. It's a very...
Hold on, mate. We're quiet. We're just make co-host. Hold on. Okay, I think Jules, you are co-host now. Okay.
Okay, cool. So there we go. You should be able to see my screen. Just one moment. You should be able to see my screen, and it should say, "Are you scared yet?" So as Carl Sagan said, anything else you're interested in isn't going to happen. If you can't breathe the air, you can't drink the water. So don't sit this one out. Do something, because you are, by accident of fate, alive at an absolutely critical moment in the history of our planet. And that's Carl Sagan. So some of the things you will hear today may scare you, but there is hope at the end of the presentation. And like I say, everyone here will know this already. I know I'm preaching to the converted, but unlike you, I've got 25 years in business as a managing director and a director of a PLC. And if you told me 3 years ago I'd be standing here talking to you about climate change, I wouldn't have believed you. And then I read the IPCC report in 2018, and the conclusions are terrifying. So I'm here because I believe that you care about the science, about the truth, and about the data. And I believe that you're well connected and have a platform and connections to get this message out. You know, and if you're a student, you'll be filling our shoes in the coming years. So as you likely know, the United Nations have declared code red for humanity. So how bad is it? Well, we'll have no food in 30 years with the eradication of soil fertility. Our water supply is approaching the jaws of death, where demand outstrips supply. And we're on course for 4 degrees this century, smashing through the tipping points, with Arctic ice gone in our lifetime, and the Greenland glacier gone in our lifetime, and billions potentially of refugees. So you die without 3 days of no water. And that's called day 0. And Chennai in India has already hit day 0. Cape Town hit day 0, and London is scheduled to hit it within 5 years. And that's not just me saying this. This is from the Environment Agency. So we're maybe facing water riots, stretched emergency services. And we're really vulnerable right now, as evidenced by the fuel queues at fuel pumps recently, just through lack of deliveries, because our just-in-time supply system is really fragile. It's not like we have stockpiles of fuel, food, or water. And you know what? If you think COVID and the supply chain is bad, climate change is like, hold my beer, you know. So we're facing multiple crises. COVID and pandemic, economic crises, the recession, and then the monster of climate change, in front of which all of the others will pale into insignificance. And electric cars and cycle lanes aren't going to fix this, and the government are not coming to save us. Our financial institutions are fueling the fire that is climate change. So I just reiterate that the United Nations has declared code red for humanity. So what can we do? Well, climate change plus growth is an existential threat to our economy, environment, our security, our happiness, and our way of life. And, we can choose to ignore these problems, or we can choose to tackle it. And I'm betting that you're all in this room because you think the second approach is preferable to the first. Now, that's a direct quote from Sir James Bevan, who was the chief executive of the Environment Agency in 2019. So today we're going to talk about growing community resilience in the face of crises, and use the plural there, by way of mutual aid. So how can we come together and support one another and help one another? So we're going to talk today about community climate action. So we obviously need to act like our house is on fire, because it is. And so what we've done as part of the Climate Emergency Centre network in East Anglia is set up iFarm. And iFarm is a community benefit society. We're not for private profit, and actually we set up in 2019 to combat social isolation and loneliness, because social isolation and actually loneliness is a killer that will kill you as quickly as smoking about 15 cigarettes a day. And the business of our society is community supported agriculture, horticulture, research and development, education and cultural activities. And basically that's a lovely catch-all umbrella. That means we can pretty much do whatever we want and gives us a lot of freedom of movement. We're slightly different to other climate emergency centres in that we've actually purchased our HQ, our properties. We've got 10 acres of land, and we've just bought the local pub. So we're taking assets of community value into the commons and recreating the commons. So we're going to steward them for future generations. So in terms of community climate action, what can we do? Well, as a community, we can come together, and individual action, I've heard it described like flicking a peanut at a rhino, but we're stronger together. And obviously as communities, we can come together. And there's an acronym called WEAT, which is waste, housing, energy, agriculture, and transport. And so what we're going to talk about today is really in terms of community benefit society and business activities. Mostly today we'll talk about housing and energy in terms of retrofitting and micro generation. But we can talk about the others at another time, and of course I'm very happy to answer any questions. So in terms of community climate action, I think the first thing that we need to do is write a community climate action plan. So I think there's around 300 odd councils out of 333 that have actually declared a climate emergency. And if you haven't checked it out, then please go to climateemergency.uk, where they list all of the councils that have declared a climate emergency. And they also list or give a climate scorecard to that particular plan from your local authority. So you can check out how good your local authority's climate action plan is. And in Suffolk, we've got a really good target. We've got quite a for a Brexit voting Tory area. We've got a really forward-thinking local authority. So Suffolk County Council's net zero target is 2030. That's pretty ambitious, and that's not just for the council. That's for the entire county. That includes all of our businesses, all of our homes, all of our transport. That includes our anchor institutions like the hospital, our universities, our fire brigade, our police. And what's becoming apparent is the local authority can only do so much. So they really need to engage with the community. and nobody's coming to save us. So we've really got to do it for ourselves, because do you know what, we are the businesses, you know, we are the community, we are the owners of the houses or the renters of the houses. So as iFarm, what we've just done is we've applied for a £10,000 grant from the National Lottery and was successfully awarded to write a community climate action plan. And that will focus on the 2 villages that we're in. Our land is in Norfolk and our pub is just south of the river in Suffolk. And so we're going to write a community climate action plan for our parishes of Blow Norton and Thelneatham, which are the 2 respective villages. And today, mostly I'm going to talk about housing and energy. But we can also then go on to talk about things like food, you know, agriculture, transport, pool cars, how we get about, and of course waste and how we process our waste. But I thought for today, because we've only got about 20 minutes or so, and then some Q&A, that we can mostly talk about energy and housing, because there's a clear payback for those 2 things. So oops, my screen isn't updating. Bear with me a moment. There we go, housing. So we're going to talk about housing. So sustainable housing means resilience, and where we want to get to ultimately in terms of new builds is net zero construction. But right now, the thing we can do the most benefit with is retrofitting and insulation. So New Economics Foundation have a great homes upgrade campaign, and there's no reason why we can't just go and start insulating our homes in our community. It's really just a matter of maths, of economics, and the payback over time. In terms of energy, sustainable energy again means resilience, and what we need is distributed networks of production. So really we're looking at what's called smart energy microgrids. So in terms of community climate action, first of all is legal form and governance. So we're a community benefits society, and what that means is we're owned by our members, we're funded by community shares, what's called withdrawable share capital. 1 member, 1 vote. We're democratically controlled, which means we're absolutely accountable to our membership. And most importantly, we are not for private profit. Now, that doesn't mean we don't make a profit, because the surplus is like red blood cells, you know, you have to have it or you die, but it's not your purpose. You know, creating red blood cells isn't your reason for being. So we do make a profit, but that profit goes back into benefit the community. And what that does is it makes a much more fair and equitable system, because it means when we're talking about being an energy generator, it means the profits for that don't go overseas into shareholders' pockets where they likely don't spend the money or possibly don't even pay tax. The profits for the energy generation go back into the benefit of the community. So it's really important that this green infrastructure that we create moving forward is actually community owned and democratically controlled. So we've created a community benefits society, and a couple of our businesses in that CBS are going to be retrofitting houses. We're going to just go and insulate homes, and there are already companies doing this. So there's People Powered Retrofit in Manchester. They've just raised £500,000 via FX, via community shares, and there's also a company called Red that's been doing it for a decade or more. And we're going to generate electricity by producing a microgrid in the village. So first thing is get a place, you know, get an HQ and make an exemplar. So we've obviously got our field, which we're transforming. We're funded by Norfolk Community Foundation, Power to Change, by Breckland District Council for water management, reed bed filtration, rainwater capture. And we've just been awarded some funding from National Lottery. So, you know, just think about what your 2040 looks like. You know, we're in the next 10 to 20 years. What's your community going to look like? What's the space going to look like? Where are you going to live? What land might you have? So we've just bought the White Horse, our community pub, and that gives us an opportunity to talk to our community over a pint. And where we are, that's our farming community. So we're already having some very interesting conversations with our community about our farmers about how to transition away from high inputs in terms of insecticide, herbicide, pesticide, and fertilizer, because things like the war in Ukraine have facilitated these conversations, because the cost of fertilizer has just tripled, and our farmers are the squeezed middle between big ag and the supermarkets. It's a hard life, and our farmers are number one suicide risk around here. And iFarm are actually mental health community champions, working with Breckland District Council. So over a pub is where we have our chats and where we change people's minds. And our pub's going to form the cornerstone of our smart energy microgrid for the village. We're going to retrofit the fuck out of it, because it's a leaky 200-year-old building. And if we can make that net zero, then we can do anything in the community. And it's things like, it's really cold at the moment at night, and just putting the heating on in the pub. Again, conversations about having to sell your firstborn to be able to afford to put the heating on, precipitates those kind of conversations. And we've actually got a hempcrete block sitting on the mantelpiece, and we put it on the bar and say, describe how we're going to insulate the property, putting cladding all around the outside, hemp wool insulation. And the benefit of a biomaterial like hemp wool is that it's not petrochemical based like Celotex. So by insulating the property, we're also drawing that carbon down from the atmosphere. And if we can draw enough of it down, that returns us to a place of safety, and we lock it up while we insulate our homes. So how are we going to pay for this? I mean, that's the nuts and the bolts of it, really. Because first of all, you've got to have a plan. Then it moves on to a feasibility study, planning, and then the execution of actually delivery. So how have we funded our acquisition so far? That's been via community shares, and this stage it's mostly a kind of friends and family network fundraise. So we've got lots of people put in a very small amount of money. Our land cost us about 100,000, and the pub's costing us about 600,000. And to do that, we're doing a community share issue, formal community share issue, with the support of the Plunkett Foundation to members of the community in the villages. And there's plenty of precedent for that. I think there's about 500 or 600 community pubs in the UK that have done exactly this. There's an ethical investment platform called FX, and FX have supported People Powered Retrofit to raise £500,000 to start their business. And then there's some more novel funding. The Public Works Loan Board is really interesting, and not many people know about this. Even parish councillors and town councillors don't know. It's a facility for borrowing for infrastructure development, and energy generation and insulation are included in infrastructure development. And your local parish council can borrow up to £500,000 a year by the Public Works Loan Board. It's what's called municipal bonds, and it's the same way the government issues money, gilt-edge bonds on the market. Happily take any questions about that. And there is precedent in Suffolk, one of our other villages, Elmswell. They're borrowing against that, and they're building net zero homes, and they bought their local pub as well. There's pension funds. If anyone's got a pension, you can do self-invested personal pensions, and you can do self-administered schemes, SAS schemes, through a company. And that means you can take up to 50% of your pension out and put it into unregistered shares, community shares. Now, I've got about 40 grand in my pension. That's probably not going to mean a lot to me, and I'm pretty convinced there's not much of a future at the moment. So I'd much rather that pension money came out and was invested in something that was doing good in my local community. And then there's a variety of grants available. So the basic premise is there is money available for what's called development capital to set this stuff up so people can be paid for their productive labor while we are insulating homes, and we can create good quality, skilled, paid jobs while we benefit our community. We can train people and do apprenticeships in installation of renewable generation. So call to action here really is come and get involved. I can't really download everything I know in 18 minutes, but hopefully I've given you a little bit of a flavour about the possible and what we're doing in our parishes. And you can put a team together and look at what's your local plan, what's the local climate action plan. Ask your local authority to engage with community assemblies on climate. Ask your businesses how they can transform, and are we moving fast enough? And how is your business contributing? So go to all your public meetings. I've spent the last year at parish council, well, more than a year, 18 months now, and I'm now fixtures and fittings, and I'm pretty much the only member of the public that goes. And they joke that I'm actually on the parish council. There's a seat coming up, and they've offered me a seat on the parish council. And again, if you told me a year ago I'd be on the parish council, I never would have believed you. But there's a surprising amount of power at that local level. Engage with your anchor institutions, you know, your local authority and your higher education establishments. And I've got loads of anecdotes about how that's worked really successfully for us. And ask your local authority about procurement policy. And I'm really pleased to see so many people from Preston here, like Gareth and Debs, because the Preston model in terms of community wealth building is amazing. And I'm having really interesting conversations with Suffolk County Council about their climate change commercial ask, which is also a procurement policy to change the way our public institutions spend their money, to spend it with sustainable businesses and cooperatives locally. And that could potentially have a really significant effect. When I was in the northeast in Northumberland, metro area of north of Tyne, the GDP there is about 17.5 billion, of which 3.5 billion is public sector expenditure. So we can put the pressure on our public sector institutions to spend more wisely. You're going to need to build a good team. I can talk about team formation. Other things I can talk about are narrative and storytelling, how you frame this. Where we are, for instance, is blue through and through, Brexit voting area. So, you know, if you're in a Labour socialist area, you'll be talking about municipal socialism, cooperatives, and socialism, what have you. We're talking about, we're the free market where we are. This is localism as championed by Conservatives. So talk a different language. We've got lots of software tools in our kit that I can show you as well to help us organise mapping, community organising software, and software for producing handbooks. So we can share knowledge. In particular for grant funding, for instance, we've done some really successful grants. Don't reinvent the wheel. Copy what we've done. We're happy to share. And most of all, look up, as I'm sure you know. So look up. And thank you. That's a little bit of a presentation from iFarm about community climate action and what we're doing in Norfolk and Suffolk. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Brilliant, Jules. Absolutely fantastic. There's a wealth of knowledge there. Big wavies, big up for Jules. Thank you so much. I mean, there is so much in there. We definitely want to link land climate emergency centres with city climate emergency centres. The Norfolk farm is one of about 4. I think it's just contacted by someone in Oxford yesterday, wants to link one up as well on the land CCs. So without too much further ado, should we go to questions? It really helps me facilitating if down the bottom there's a thing called reactions, looks like a little smiley face. And if you stick it up and raise your hand, like I did just there, but remember to take it down again, like I'm doing now, lower hand, then I can see who's number 1, 2, 3, and 4. So helps me watch the screen. Okay, Julian's quick off the marks from the Swindon team. It's like University Challenge here, and then over to Leeds. Julian.
That's brilliant, Jules. I was just wondering what sort of timescale it's taken you to develop this. I can imagine it taking a few years.
Good question. I guess it's been years in the planning. We've been sat around, me and my friends have been sat around campfires kind of dreaming about this for a while and thinking about it. But we can help everyone here accelerate that process because we've done it, a lot of it. But in reality, we're actually moving really quickly. So we bought our 10 acres of land a year ago on Saturday. So it's a 1-year anniversary. So what's happened in the last year is incredible. And we're really moving at speed. And what I'm actually finding with things like the local authority and our local educational establishments is the door's so open when I push against it, I fall in the room now. Everybody knows, and they're mostly keen for, they mostly want to understand what to do, like what can I do, you know. So it's taken us a year so far.
That helps, I tell him. Yeah, Helen.
Yeah, you said about this public works loan board, and you said your parish council can borrow. Well, I'm Leeds, we're not a parish council. Is it any government can borrow, or didn't quite understand that?
Absolutely. So it's any local authority can borrow money again from the Public Works Loan Board, and local authorities seem to have forgotten they can do this. It's a thing called municipal bonds. There's plenty of precedent for it. It was used widely in the Second World War, and as I say, a little village called Elmswell near where I live are actively doing this. And municipal bonds have been championed by Molly Scott Cato, for instance, our ex-Green MEP and parliamentary candidate who's a world-leading economist. I think the interest rate is just around 2% at the moment, maybe a little bit more. So it's actually very cheap money in terms of borrowing. Normally the capital repayments are over a very long horizon, so they're normally 40 odd years. And it's only available for infrastructure projects. It's limited to £500,000 per year for a parish council because parishes are really small. When it comes to municipal authorities like a district council or county council or a metro mayor, for instance, it's pretty much unlimited borrowing. I mean, let me just say that again, unlimited borrowing, 2%. Why we don't, I know that Jamie Driscoll, Mayor of Newcastle, and Andy Burnham are they're currently calling for a green industrial revolution in the north. And our metro mayors cover about 50% of the population. And they're asking central government, give us funding, give us funding. And obviously our Conservative government are consistently saying, no, we don't need to wait for them. We can just go and municipal bonds is issuing money. It's just like the Bank of England does. And as long as there's clear payback over time, and it's not a risky business enterprise, then it's eminently doable. And that's the beautiful thing about insulating homes, particularly with the cost of energy at the moment, is there is a clear payback. You can absolutely demonstrate the day the lines cross where you get the capital repayments. Similarly with energy generation, they're safe bets, safe as houses. So they're clear candidates for this. So yeah, be really happy to share further info.
Yeah, and just on the money side, would it be worth considering having a green credit union set up, or is that more complicated?
No, absolutely. Credit unions, there's a thing called mutual credit, which is really important to understand. So when there was rampant inflation after the Depression in Germany, for instance, before the Second World War, there were various monetary mechanisms that countries used. Switzerland used used mutual credit to create a thing called Swiss Via, which is backed by the franc, still in existence today, 70 odd years later. And I think they do something like 300 billion in mutual credit between companies in Switzerland now, which frees up cash. So there's mutual credit, there's cooperative regional banking. So in the Northeast, they're looking at setting up a cooperative bank to lend to businesses to do this kind of thing. And they're also looking at doing that in Norfolk, which is again a very conservative local authority. And the beauty of being a bank is, again, with fractional reserve banking, you can press a button and you can create money out of thin air as debt. And so that debt can really fund, these jobs and this infrastructure development. But yes, credit unions are a good instrument as well.
Just one fact.
Helen, then Paul. Over.
Yeah, I was going to say just one final thing. Any sort of links with stuff about this? Any website links you can think of? Because I know Speaking Finance makes a lot of people glaze over.
It does. I'm a bit of an anorak. I love it over in a party talking about finance. But I've got all the links, the government papers, and let me just ping it on screen. And it is, in fact, let me just see.
I was going to say, if Jules, if you put a contact in as well, then I'm sure there's other wealth of questions and other things people want to come back to you on as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, do put links in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the United Kingdom Debt Management Office that manages Public Works Loan Board stuff. But I'll put my contact details in the chat. Please do get in touch, and I can send you all the links you need.
And folks, anything you're chatting about, and you mentioned a good project group, please put the website in so that we can share. I really want to get all these databased at some point so we can see the amazing projects that everyone talks about during these things. Over to Paul in sunny Oswestry. Say it really fast so I don't say it wrong.
It's all right, you said it fine. Thanks, Phoenix. Jules, I just wanted to say that was a brilliant 19.5-minute presentation on a subject that is like huge, isn't it? It's so huge that you scraped the surface, and it's left me thinking I would love to hear for our CEC loads more details, and I was wondering whether it would be worth you separating these things out into areas, or in some ways where we could, those of us that need this, which I got a feeling it's not just our CEC, could go into further depth, because it feels like this whole thing about sharing and using your knowledge, it might even be that you could become, if you haven't already, an information source for other CECs. But is it possible that you could consider breaking this down into areas and perhaps helping groups through or with Phoenix?
Yes, Paul. So I've got a whole bunch of Google Docs, lots of links, information, and a huge amount of knowledge in my head. And if this was more of a workshop format, we'd probably be going into breakout rooms on different topics at the moment. Who wants to do energy? Who wants to do housing? Who wants to do legals? This kind of thing. And we'd actually be doing a bit of a design charrette, which I'm absolutely happy to facilitate workshops and knowledge transfers for different CECs and provide consultancy. If I'm at the end of a phone, pick up the phone. And I'm delighted to hear you've got a building that's 3 steps from falling down, Paul, because everybody wants a fixer-upper, and what a marvelous opportunity, because you retro, you can create a beautiful exemplar,
Yes. Yeah, this particular one's gonna change our date of our energies are going to need to be put into the building first, rather than straight into what we decided to do. But you're right. That's what it is. It would be an exemplar.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay, so do put your hand up if you want to ask a question. I've got a couple of bits of feedback here, but anyone else do jump in and either say or reactions down the bottom, stick your hand up. So there was a question from Kerry from Preston earlier about, so as unpaid community organisations, what can we do to support water and food security, as in supply chain diversity and strength? I was kind of, food security, one of the things we're trying to do is link up with bits of land, and then groups from the city can go to the land. There was a fantastic thing years ago called landshare.net. I think the website's gone now, but the idea was people with land could work with people who didn't have land, whether it's a pensioners with a big garden or a farmer, and they could grow some food and share it. But you mentioned about energy, Jules. So microgrids, energy generation, I think Danny was on about a lot and really keen on. How can we help to improve water, food and energy resilience, really? I suppose would be a question to Jules and the group. How can we use the Climate Emergency Centres network to, whether it's water filters or linking with bits of land for food or showing renewable energy in our centres, or any feedback on that, Jules? Food and energy.
So the first thing I'll just address is energy, and what we need is micro generation in our communities, and we've got lots of anchor institutions. So on a micro scale in a village, and I'll talk about villages a lot, but even in cities, in London you've got your own little villages, but in our village, for instance, we've got the pub, we've got the church, and we've got the village hall. There are anchor institutions that will be generating electricity from those, and we'll be net exporters of those to the village. So we'll create an excess of energy, store that in batteries, and then we'll actually install an energy grid, a microgrid, and we'll put solar and renewable energy generation on all of the houses, all of the residential houses and business properties in the area. And by doing that, we'll be resilient from energy crises and shocks. So that's the first thing, that's energy. In terms of food, well, we're installing what's called a wallopini, which is a sunken greenhouse recessed about 4 foot into the ground. And the earth provides the thermal mass, and we heat it with ground source heat pumps or potentially with solar. And it's a massive synergistic protected environment is the technical term. What that means is warm year round, gets sunlight year round, and we'll be growing citrus fruit year round in that wallopini. So our oranges won't be coming from Brazil, they'll be coming from the field in Norfolk. And each wallopini, and they're about, trying to think feet to meters, they're 120 foot long, and I think they're probably about 20 foot wide. Each one of those is enough to feed fruit and winter vegetables for 140 people. So, you know, we need to be thinking about in an urban environment, where can we install these? You know, what, how much space has our supermarkets got? How much car parking space have we got? What rooftops can we put them on? You know, to build food resilience. And then the final thing was water. And again, we really need to be considering rainwater capture, harvesting and natural filtration. So at iFarm, we've got a borehole, and we're going to be filtering that with charcoal to make drinking water. And then we're going to be having rainwater capture and reed bed filtration of our grey water. And we've just got 10,000 in funding from Breckland to do our water management.
Cool. There's quite a few things there. Really, I think we need to ask, the water question. But I'd just like to welcome Julia from sunny North Wales. It's got very tropical. Hi, Julia. Welcome. So I think we've, what have we got? I mean, Julia, do you just want to check in or say hello briefly? We're only in the last.
I just apologise for being late. I've tried to join a few times in vain. I don't know what happened, but finally I just clicked and you're here. Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. Apologies. I think there was one out of the 3 posts I put in had a slightly wrong Zoom link. I did put the correct one in again, and others had put the correct one in. So, okay, we're in the last sort of 10 minutes or so. Any other questions from the group, feedback, or anything you would like to share about what you're doing in your area related to what's been chatted about tonight, or anything you want to share?
I'd just like to apologise. I thought I put the link in for Jules's farm. That's not his website. The one that, don't click on it. It's not his website. It's the Facebook page.
Okie doke. Maybe Jules can put the correct one in.
Yeah, I've popped our Facebook page in. We also have a sort of private Facebook community group. Anyone's welcome to join. It's kind of invitation only. Well, I say invitation. You can request to join and I'll approve you. I'll pop that link in there as well.
Karen.
I just wanted to say, when I was talking about food supply and food security and water security, I didn't necessarily mean community farms, because a lot of people don't really have time to farm and things like that, and how they access their food isn't necessarily farm to plate as much as we'd like it to be. It's through a third party, such as a supermarket or some kind of shop or some kind of business. And I just wondered how we could make how much DCECs work with businesses to create security in things like food and other such areas. I know there's community energy projects because we're doing one in Preston, but I just wondered.
That's a really good question, and you know, we're all evolving this network together. I mean, we've talked a lot about getting climate emergency centres working with the local council and authority that's declared climate emergency, with the local community, also with, you know, local businesses and groups. We would like to think that people have an ethical filter, that they won't work with some very big, nasty corporate multinationals, but you've got to try and reach out to get everyone cooperating, really. So one of the things we're trying to do is encourage local eco-enterprise and local businesses to gradually get more green. So we're producing a kind of, with a group called Solve.Earth, a list of ways that companies can green themselves up, whatever that is, from recycled paper to checking their supply lines, if they're fair, if they're ethical, you know, trying to reduce their carbon footprint, looking at all of these things as a, you know, many of us know people who work in all sorts of businesses. How do we gradually turn businesses greener? And one of the things we can do for that is, if you get a slightly larger climate emergency centre space, there could be a little eco startup spaces, from desks to little rooms that are cheap, sliding scale, low cost, that gradually they pay a bit more if they get a bit more successful. But, you know, local communities have so many ideas, but they can't afford a space to do it. You know, hot desk 50 quid a day or whatever, you know. So we're trying to provide some space for good, you know, eco enterprise things, and talk to local businesses. They will donate you stuff from the Hive in Dawson. When we did it, we fit the whole place out from Travis Perkins. They gave us a lot of their old wood and stuff. So you can reach out to groups and talk to them along the way, and it's up to all of us to see what level of cooperations you can do with local businesses and groups and councils and things. I think Julia in sunny North Wales, the sunflowers, wants to be.
I don't know if I'm talking out of turn because I haven't been in the meeting, but
Okay.
can I share with you what's happening in my area of rural Wales? Well, I'm disabled and I use a rollator frame with a seat, and I go around my back garden pottering into my raised beds. It's only a small garden, but I grow runner beans and lettuce and cabbages and some kind of winter kale. So I've tried carrots, but not very successfully. I've tried beetroots unsuccessfully, but runner beans are great because they go up and take less space. I do have to fight the slugs and snails eco-friendly. I don't use slug pellets or anything, so I spend a fortune on trying to avoid them. But basically, we've got in Towyn, 13 miles from here, there's a group called Greener Towyn, and they have a community gardens and lots of volunteers, and they do beach clean, so they're very popular in the area. And I'm sure they've had lots of places things donated because they're in account. They've got a garden at the back of the village hall. And then Machynlleth, which you probably know is the first town to declare a climate emergency in Wales. Of course, you've got the Centre for Alternative Technology 3 miles up the road near Corris. And then, of course, you've got lots of people. There's a huge Gerddi, Brodovy Gerddi gardens, community gardens. They have a lot of activities there. And of course, there's a lot of singers and musicians in the area, so that's good for the plants, as long as they don't have a huge boombox blaring. But it's a wonderful place. You can go and pick vegetables and fruits from all over the village, outside the library. They've got raised beds outside the police station, near the leisure centre. I mean, they're just there for people to go along and pick all year round. There's another one in Porthmadog Community Gardens on the leisure centre grounds. And it's just so inspiring, because there's another video I've seen of I forget his name. He's like a dumpster diver, but he lives in a city in America, and there's a little bit of green on the pavement. So he dug all the soil and planted things. At first it was like the police said, you can't do this, but it caught on. So now he goes out and does all these seminars about how you can just go and invade a bit of land that's on the pavement and just grow things.
Beautiful. There was that group, Incredible Edible, the grandmas who started growing everywhere. I think we're approaching the end of time, folks. So maybe Jules, just to say something quick, and then I think we'll go for quick checkouts. I just want to say that one of the things we're trying to do with this network is, you know, think as a network, not just as one individual centre. We're really trying to grow this as a network, a mycelium of many different projects, one of Danny's favourite words. But at some point, we want to do network-wide actions on things like, if we could all adopt a local piece of land or a landowner group and do a mass tree planting one weekend, or we could go out and help with flood defences or food growing, whatever it is, just thinking as a network and how we can share resources, skills and things. So, Jules, you've put something in for people to contact you?
Yes, yeah. I popped my details in the chat. And the question about food is obviously really, really important. You know, as we witness the cost of grain skyrocketing with the war in the Ukraine, which is a key bread basket, that's mostly affecting the Arab world, but it's, you know, where our food comes from is going to be super important. There is a fire sale at the moment of public sector land. There will be NHS land, local authority land, a whole bunch of public sector land available in towns, cities, and around you. You can get that land and start growing. You know, that's just simply my advice. There's procurement policies in terms of where public sector buy their stuff from, which we can influence so they can support local growing, and start up veg box schemes and fair share.
Absolutely amazing as always. What I'd like to do, I think, following on from someone's suggestion, was invite you back in a couple of months for a proper workshop, where we do it slightly longer, maybe an hour and a half, and we go into breakout groups and people can talk about whatever it is, food, land, energy, funding, and things like that. We maybe plan that in a couple of months. All right, folks, thank you very much to Jules. Can we have a big up way for Jules? Nice one. Beautiful knowledge there. If we just go for quick checkouts, just say, you know, a few words. So my checkout is inspiring talk. And please, can you all think about water, food and energy resilience for yourselves and your centres? Okay, passing over to Penny in Weymouth.
Amazing, thank you very much. Got loads to go through there. Thank you. I'll pass to Paul.
Hi, thanks, Jules. It was really, really great, and I look forward to finding out more and seeing you again. Thank you.
Do you want to pass to anyone? Oh.
Yeah, sorry, I was miles away. Alex in Weymouth.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jules. That was yeah, a very densely packed presentation, very interesting. And probably be in touch to find out more at some point. That's all right. I'll pass to Sue. Sue disappeared as soon as I said her name. There's some kind of magic I was doing there. How about Debs then?
Yeah, thanks, Jules. Really looking forward to coming and visiting when we can, as soon as possible, really. Getting my fingers dirty and digging in. We'll pass to Julia in Wales.
I'm inspired to come back. Love to talk to people about anything to do with the earth and what we can eat locally, and hopefully we can give up eating more animals and have more agricultural land back the way it was. And I look forward to that. So thank you. I'd love to be in a breakout group and talk more fully with others. That would be great. So please let me know, co-hosts and hosts. I've sent my email. Let me know when the next meeting is. Yeah, Gardeners Unite. Whoever hasn't been, who wants to, please put your hand up.
I'll go. So I'm off to find lots of pensioners to get them all to, well, almost pensioners, to get them to cash their SIP in and give me all the money to save the world with. Not sure how I do that. And just a quick question, when are we moving to Wednesdays?
In May, I believe, yes.
Okay. And I'll pass to Claire.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jules. That was great. I want a workshop now.
Homework, Jules. Okay, who's next? Anna?
I'll go. Yeah, thanks, Jules. That was brilliant. I think it's really exciting what you're doing up at the iFarm, and I want to come and visit soon. And I will pass on to Debs. Have you been?
I have been, but are we meeting next week? Or are we having a holiday?
Next Thursday, yes, we are meeting. I'd have to check the newsletter thing to see whether it's, it might be Jamie, it might be just an ordinary general chat. And then the next week is Jamie Kelsey-Fry talking about participatory democracy movements, basically from about 2005 or something.
Cool. That's good then. That's something to look forward to. All right, I'm going to go. I'll see you on Thursday.
See you.
Bye, everyone. I'll pass to Julian in Swindon.
Well done.
Thanks, Debs. So yeah, brilliant. And I really hope that, you know, a network like the CEC network can sort of establish either, you know, together with the CEC network or, you know, complementary to it. And I think it's brilliant. Thanks, Jules. And I'll pass to Daniel. If you're there.
Daniel, you need to unmute if you want to chat. Daniel,
Penny, while Daniel unmutes.
Okay, who's next who hasn't been?
I haven't been.
Go for it.
Hi everyone. Great talk, Jules. That's just so calm and just so inspiring, as everybody said. I used to live there, so I'd love to pair with like a city CEC with a CEC or a sort of land-based thing would be great. So then we could have an idea to send people out to know what it's like to have this, because all of that sounded quite alien as to what I could do. But well, from little seeds, acorns, trees grow. So there you go. Thank you very much. And yeah, looking forward to hearing more. I pass to anyone who's not been. Claire? Nope. Anna? Julian?
Raise your hand if you haven't been. Has that everyone checked out? Julian, over to sunny Norfolk.
Thanks, everyone. I'm really excited about prospect for workshops and working with you all. And we are hoping to gather in Norfolk, maybe in July, as a Climate Emergency Centre network and have a weekend together. So do stay in touch. We'll probably be sending out some information about that. We've got a bunch of bell tents and camping available, and various accommodation in caravans and the pub. And it might be a lovely opportunity for us all to gather and get together. So
I'm going to stop recording at that point. And okay, love.